she also went to college with kids down there. Like gifted, like something.
I'm the greatest thing that ever walked.
Yes.
So we're down there, all the time. So all of these open date time together,
Yes, I would love to. I'm gonna go back here and say that to my niece.
My wife said I couldn't bring my Switch. I'm in the middle of an MLB season, and she said you can't do that.
I am going to read it.
Yes, your mom is nicer than my wife.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my niece.
Or no, I said you first.
You're going to put.
Oh, no, no. I just,
Yeah.
I said,
That's fine.
thanks for coming in.
It's going to be off the wall, and so like I was going to do it here. So I'm just going to go find out what that is. Like I don't know if I'm going to knowing like John's mother age people or whatever. So,
I mean,
I'll try it.
I go to the Orr Street things. I haven't been to one in a while. Just because Tuesday nights kind of became complicated or whatever. But I go there, accessibility. Anytime we do the yellow dog readings, which I haven't really done in a while. Try to develop. I think I do
Thank you everybody for coming out to the, do we have a name? Barb's Books Reads?
Presents.
Present.
Barb's Books Presents.
Barb's Books Presents series. I don't know how many years this is for us now. Probably in some form or another, 5 to something like that. 5 plus. Multiple. 7. Okay. Mark says 7. In multiple locales. And this place was purchased about 3 years ago. We got sick of renting, so bought it, and Mark and Tony worked incredible magic on the place. It was it made me think of the basement scene in The Silence of the Lambs initially, except it was ground floor and the back. Yeah, we don't need that. But as you can see, it's
Buffalo Bills like sewing skin together.
I don't whatever. Something was going on. I'm gonna try this.
Sure. Yeah, we probably should.
All right.
Can you use that read?
I think so. Mulvania. It sounds like a small Eastern European.
It does. It's actually
Mulvania.
Irish. I don't know how.
Is it what?
It was Mulvania, like Mulvania.
Oh, I see this.
It's Mulvania.
And I, once these, one of these, Ellis Island.
It's like too hard to pronounce.
Right, but like when were the
Mulvania.
Eastern Europeans like better off? It was better to be one of those than the Irish.
So, Jason,
right?
Maybe a public service
All right, so,
announcement.
Anyway, yeah.
Public service announcement
About the restroom.
Oh yeah.
Is it out or something?
We are cursed with restroom problems. The toilet works. The sink does not.
Okay.
So
hygiene issues.
Lather on the hand sanitizer.
Yeah, we
That's what I did.
got a gallon jug of hand sanitizer. All right. Andrew Mulvania, formerly Mulvany, is the author of a collection of poems, also in Acadia, published by the Backwaters Press, now an imprint of the University of Nebraska Press in 2008. Recent poems have appeared in Chicago Quarterly Review and Smartish Pace.
Yes.
All right, that's all I'm doing.
Okay,
Andrew
that's
Mulvania,
fine.
everybody.
so much to everyone for coming out. I should definitely mention my lovely wife Sharon, stepson Declan, my niece Maggie in the background there, with her friend Caroline, and Paula Kaywood, Heather Irvin, old friends from Lynne High School, and of course my esteemed colleagues here reading with me, Sharon, SingingMoon, Feltman, and Lynne, Jensen Lampe. And we all came down from Columbia, and Justin Ham, good friend and fellow poet, came all the way from Mexico. So it's so wonderful to be surrounded by friends and family. And thank you to Jason for hosting. I read here a year ago, and I have a book which is about growing up close by here, about 20 minutes away on a farm outside of Lynne, Missouri, an 80-acre farm, and my father still lives there, and he had to be out of town today, but with me in spirit, and he was able to be here at the last reading. But anyway, 2 goals for tonight: to read a shorter amount of time than I did last time, and to read only poems that I've written since I read here last time. And kind of as I was looking over these poems, to read 10 of them that I'll be reading tonight, short amount of time that I did last time, and sort of to read those poems that I've been thinking a lot about since I read the issues of freedom and constraint, kind of as I was various ways, the things that constrain our lives, short amount of time, last time, death, mortality, and sort of some of the biggest ones I've been thinking about since I read the issues of freedom and constraint, kind of as I was various ways, the things that constrain our lives, relationships, family structure, last time, death, mortality, and sort of some of the biggest ones I've been thinking about since I read the issues of freedom and constraint, kind of as I was various ways, the things that constrain our lives, relationships, family structure, last time, death, mortality, and sort of some of the biggest ones I've been thinking about since I read the issues of freedom and constraint, poetry, voice, engaging in art, space, relationships, family structure, last time, death, mortality, and sort of some of the biggest ones music, existence, forces, constraint, poetry, voice, engaging in art. So the first poem I'm going to read is called Portrait of an Artist, Swimming Laps in Suburbs. Wrote it in the Black Summer. My wife and joined a swim club. So the first poem is swim club is called Portrait of an Artist, Swimming Laps in Suburbs. I ended up swimming there. Now I swim in the Black Summer. I was reflecting a lot. I swim laps almost every day. Although my blood pressure is swim club tested that, but it's been a lot of time staring at the middle, looking air. Now it's sort of wavy lines, things like this. I was reflecting a lot. I mentioned that David Hockney's famous paintings, Pools. He did in the 60s, was moved from England to LA, and escaped the oppressive, dreary, rainy English climate, and also there are the sodomy laws and things like that, for the more permissive, free, sensual experience of LA. So escape the oppressive, dreary, rainy English climate. Portrait of an Artist, Swimming Laps in the Suburbs, Pool with 2 Figures, for the David Hockney and John Cheery, sensual, and the subtitle there is based on his painting, Portrait of an Artist, Pool with 2 Figures. Portrait of an Artist, Swimming Laps in the Suburbs, and almost all these figures have David Hockney. This first one is from the great prose stylist, one of the greatest novelists, in my opinion, of the 20th century and into the 21st. He died a few years back, James Salter, from his A Sport and a Pastime. And this is the epigraph. As for Anne Marie, she lives in Troy now, or did. She is married. I suppose there are children. They walk together on Sundays, the sunlight falling upon them. They visit friends, talk, go home in the evening, deep in the life we all agree is so greatly to be desired. All that summer, swimming laps at Southwest Swim Club, it was like living in a David Hockney painting, minus the passion of Peter Schlesinger either leaning naked against the lip of the pool facing away from us, his buttocks exposed just above the waterline, and Peter getting out of Nick's pool, or the sadness of Peter leaving in Portrait of an Artist, pool with two figures, as he stands beside the pool in that salmon pink blazer, watching his new lover, Eric Bowman, swimming like a shark just below the water. Instead, it was the tepid and socially sanctioned pleasures of suburban housewives and their kids, the sad and flabby dads alongside, doomed to sit poolside, unlike Peter standing, primed for departure, looking grimly on at all the responsibilities they'd saddled themselves with, who were, for once, laughing happily in the pool with the innocence and naivete of sheltered suburban children playing contentedly in a suburban swimming pool in summer, instead of whining for someone to buy them this or that bauble that, in that moment, they imagined would make them endlessly happy, but which would more likely end up at the bottom of a pool somewhere forgotten, after having been played with for exactly 5 minutes. Like one of those weighted torpedoes you throw as a child only in order to practice diving after it again. In reality, it was actually more like being in a John Cheever story, say, The Swimmer. As the sunlight glinted in wavy lines in that golden light of late afternoon, with water flowing off your fingertips as they knifed into the water, faster and faster, like Nettie Merrill swimming from pool after pool on his way back home, not realizing the fact that he was actually swimming further away from his own life. That in seeking the freedom to briefly escape from the tedium of afternoon martini parties in carefully manicured backyards with their carefully curated lives of mothers, fathers, and children playing in backyard pools, in trying to fly from the trap and ravages of time through the wavy blue and white David Hockney medium of the pool, with its undulating, fractured, fractal patterns of blue and white lines like the individual panes of leaded glass in Chagall's America windows, a blue that pure and intense. He was actually swimming even faster into the stream of time itself, like that Nova special you saw on PBS as a child that terrified you, about Einstein's theory of relativity and what happens to you when you travel at the speed of light. How, when you return from your voyage in space, everyone around you appears to have aged, while you remain exactly the same as you were when you left. See him there, as whole seasons stream from his feet and off his back in rivulets, the sun beginning to set by now. Off in the distance somewhere, leaf fires burning. See the screen door to the porch where it hangs loose on its hinges. The children gone now. No more laughter on the air. His wife no longer recognizing him. No more martinis waiting for him on a silver tray, now tarnished with the fine smoky patina of time that eventually smudges and covers everything. Just as the pool will be covered soon for winter, with a blue rubber cover that sags in the middle, where leaves and rainwater have collected, and will soon shake the wind like Shakespeare's bare ruined choirs, or rather like tiny drowned fingers where they're locked in the ice, pinned like insects against a cloth, or exhibits displayed in a museum, stuck forever in the frozen current of time. All right. The next 3 poems I'm going to read are Ghazal poems. This is a poem that is an ancient, somewhat ancient Arabic form that American and English-speaking poets have kind of adopted, that involves like a repetition of a certain phrase over and over in the second line, and frequently the last stanza will involve like the signature of your name and some other little things, which I totally ignore. And as do a lot of contemporary poets who write ghazals. And hip-hop kind of uses this form in some ways with like chain rhyme and just sort of a repeated rhyming sound. So some of these, I wrote 3 of them. I'm working on more. And each of them takes off from a phrase that I, that I read and liked. The first one is called Greedy Ghazal. or guzzle. Living, and this is from the person that everyone loves to hate, Karl Nausgaard, from his book, My Struggle. Living, and this is his words, is being greedy for days, no matter whether they are good or bad. Dying is being weary of days when they no longer matter or cannot matter because you are no longer inside them, but on the outside. What does it mean to be greedy for days? To want life so badly, you're needy for days. Feel life fleeing so fast that you're speedy for days. Forget to shower or sleep, so you're seedy for days. Haunted by death, you feel time bleeding away. The insoluble problem that is eating away at the core of your being while it's pleading for days. Like the silkworm that grows as it's feeding away on mulberry leaves before retreating away inside the cocoon it's been weaving for days to emerge as a moth that lives for only 3 days. An emblem for the soul, the saint of Avila did say. Your soul that's so restless, so eager for days and more days. You're so hungry for days. Yeah. And this one is just called Time Ghazal. And it comes talking about art and paintings that influence me. I try to just sort of live in them, like the living in the blue David Hockney medium of his paintings. The painter Agnes Martin, kind of a lesser known Georgia O'Keeffe. I mean, I don't know if she is lesser known, but you don't hear about her as much. Even though she too, oddly, like moved to the New Mexico desert, escaped the modernist painting scene of New York, and she painted these huge kind of color field paintings, sort of like Rothko, but she would draw these grids on them, and she felt that she could kind of disappear into the sort of grid-like order, and she referred to it as innocence of her own paintings. And I came across this phrase of hers in Olivia Lane's book, Funny Weather, Art in a Time of Emergency. And she says, I wish the idea of time would drain out of my cells and leave me quiet, even on this shore. I wish the idea of time would drain from my cells and leave me quiet on this shore. Wish that time were no more than a toy to be simply cast aside on this shore, as carelessly and self-forgetfully as a child might on this shore, while building sandcastle cities or flying a kite by the shore, to sit unused and rusting and disregarded as a forgotten watch left to lie on the shore. Though such a simile is not, like Paley's famous analogy, meant to imply an argument from design on this shore, but its opposite. We're suspended in time like flotsam, pulled ceaselessly back and forth by the tide along the shore. There's nothing as simple and orderly and innocent as Agnes Martin's grids about our lives on this shore. Some say everything that we see is an illusion, a trick of the light and mind and sight on this shore. I refute it thus, said Dr. Johnson to Boswell, kicking a stone before him as one might a pebble on the shore. And the third ghazal that I'm going to read is, I just call it Stern Ghazal. It's for Gerald Stern, who died in his 90s, at the ripe old age of 90-something, 94, 95. Great poet. I had the good fortune to bring him to read when I taught out at Washington Jefferson College, and just such a dear man, generous poet, amazing figure. So this one is called Stern Ghazal, although I guess it could be called Body Ghazal, and its point of departure comes from his poem Sycamore, where he says, how foolish the body must feel when it's only a carcass, when the breath has left it forever, as it always does, in search of something painless. Gerald Stern's Sycamore. What is the body when the breath has gone, has left it forever, never to return, when it's only a carcass, no more animate than stone, like a boarded up house in an abandoned town, or an empty parade route after the crowd is gone, all trash strewn and sad where the wind has blown, and plastic bags that lie scattered and torn are caught in the current and tossed up and down like the fluttering sleeves of a bodiless gown, the chaste white dress of Emily Dickinson on its dressmaker's dummy in her airless room, a dressmaker's dummy when the dressmakers passed on. Okay, we're done with the Ghazal poems. This poem also has an epigraph from Karl Ove Knausgaard. I'm obsessed with this guy. I don't have to be obsessed anymore because I finally finished his 6th volume, 4,000 page novel, autobiographical novel. But this poem is called The Beauty of Time Passing, and it just takes its title and its whole idea and concept, I guess, from that phrase, which occurs in these lines from Karl Ove Knausgaard's My Struggle, Book 6. But that feeling also belonged to the darkness of August, I thought to myself. In that darkness, too, there was promise and expectation. Something closes, something else opens. Life is there for the living. Through autumn and winter, spring and summer, fuller with every turn. Wasn't that what was happening? Never had the darkness of August felt more replete than that. Replete with what? The beauty of time passing. Here's my point. There must be a German word for the beauty of time passing. A word that means walking your wife's French bulldog, the one you hate, named Hemingway, to the curb and back so he can pee and poop before bedtime under partial moonlight in October as the nights grow cooler. A word for all that peeing and pooping, for all the eating and drinking that creates the need for such a routine, and for days measured out in this way, as precisely as the length of sidewalk out and back, demarcating the route of these daily walks. A word for that same moon waxing and waning above you. It's not yet quite half full tonight. Another measure of time passing that's also likewise beautiful. Virginia creeper reddening as it climbs its way ladder-like up the side of an old dying oak. A barred owl calling, who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? Back in the woods, on the threshold, or under the lintel of winter. Any liminal space like that lintel where you look up suddenly and notice a passage or portal you're passing through, like those high clouds sailing silently by overhead, or like suddenly remembering, unbidden in the midst of a crowd, the thought, I'm mortal. All right, speaking of clouds, this one is called Cloud Appreciation Society. I don't know if anyone is a member of Cloud Appreciation Society on Facebook, but you know how you have the habit, I'm sure we all do, of like waking up in the morning, the first thing you do is grab your phone unconsciously and pop on Facebook or whatever before you're even awake. Not a good habit, and so I try to just, you know, like sometimes a phrase or something I'll see and will spark a poem. In this case, I just saw that there was a Facebook group called the Cloud Appreciation Society. Didn't know what it is. Do you know what it is? People just post pictures of clouds and the location, like spotted in Belle, Missouri. This particular type of cloud spotted in Belle, Missouri on, you know, September, whatever it is. But I reimagined what the Cloud Appreciation Society was from the perspective of someone, like a member, saying what they were. And it just came to me when I saw that phrase. in the Cloud Appreciation Society. In the Cloud Appreciation Society, we lay all day on our backs in the grass, looking up at the sky, waiting for the perfect cloud. Or maybe not a perfect one exactly, maybe just a nice or possibly even just an okay one. A typical fluffy white one, say, or a long, uneven, scraggly one. For in addition to appreciation, we are also part of a cloud body positivity movement. To form and then vanish. Since part of what one appreciates in the Cloud Appreciation Society is simply the beauty of impermanence and the emptiness of all form of its content. Excuse me. Two of the three Buddhist principles known as the three marks of existence. The third missing one being suffering, since here in the Cloud Appreciation Society, there is no suffering. Some of the clouds resemble animals with the almost infinite variety of balloon creatures made by a carnival clown, and we give them names the way one would a pet, while others arrive in the shape of the face of one long dead, come back to tell us something, only it's never quite clear what it is they wish to tell us. Most of us in the Cloud Appreciation Society are Buddhists, though it isn't a requirement. As the only official religion we recognize in the Cloud Appreciation Society is the religion of nephology, which, like the Society of Friends or Quakers, like them, we too are a society of friends, is a kind of silent prayer. Whenever anyone feels moved to say something, they open their mouths and only cloud smoke comes out, which is how new clouds are formed, and then vanish. All right. You're lucky you came tonight because I'm going to read a poem that is titled The Key to Absolute Happiness. I'm going to tell you the key to absolute happiness. And I'm sure based on what you've heard already, you probably won't like it, but the answer. The key to absolute happiness. In order to understand the key to absolute happiness, you have to taste the sadness of life. You have to let it pick you up the way a gust of wind picks up a piece of paper and tosses it violently around before depositing it thoughtlessly on the ground once again and leaving it there for dead. You have to get down on the ground, on that ground yourself, on all fours like a wild animal, and howl and smear blood and muck all over your body, and tear at your breast and belly, and gnash your teeth, and wipe your bloody, mucky hands off on your breasts and face and pants, if you're still wearing them. You have to bury yourself deep in the earth like Anna Mendieta did in her Silhouetas before being shoved out a window, and let your soul slumber there for 1,000 years, as in Walter Pater's description of the Mona Lisa, and why she has that sphinx-like smile on her face. She is older than the rocks among which she sits. Like the vampire, she has been dead many times and learned the secrets of the grave. Until you too get a cryptic-ass smile on your motherfucking face. Despite all the sadness and the random tragedy, all the arbitrary, mindless sickness and dying, all the pointless banality and triviality of existence. Since only then will you possess the key to absolute happiness. Only then will you know the joy that comes from melancholy and be, as poor Keats wrote in his own hymn to sadness, among her cloudy trophies hung. All right. 3 more poems. This one is called Meditation at Melville's Arrowhead Farm, Pittsfield, Massachusetts, October 2022. I had the good fortune of accompanying my wife on a residency that she was doing at Antioch University, for her low residency program in dance movement therapy. And I basically spent like 3 or 4 days driving hundreds of miles around Vermont, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire, going to see Emily Dickinson's house, Robert Frost's house in Derry, New Hampshire, and Melville's house out in Pittsfield, which I highly recommend all of that if you get the opportunity. And this too has 2 epigraphs. One from Melville in a letter to a friend referring to the reception of his 3rd novel, Mardi. This is before he wrote Moby Dick, where things really started to go south for him. It may possibly, by some miracle that is, flower like aloe 100 years hence, or not flower at all, which is more likely by far, for some aloes never flower. And one more from Ovid when he was in exile. You ask why I send my scribbles? Because I want to be with you somehow. Sat on the north-facing porch, the one Melville called the piazza, looking out toward the whaleback peak of Mount Greylock, staring across at a field of dry weeds and wildflowers, where someone had cut a walking path to better observe the countryside of the Berkshires. Everything spoke of harvest, of rich garners of the full-ripened grain, as Keats once wrote amidst his own ruins in his Ode to Autumn. The roadside stands with their rows of colorful pumpkins and squash, the ricks of decorative Indian corn for sale, a throwback to modes of harvest long vanished from these parts, and before that, to the people and ways of life that inspired Melville to give this place its name, also vanished. The Technicolor New England leaves just then coming into their fabled brightness on the drive over through the mountains to Pittsfield. But all I thought of was failure, Melville's and my own. Melville, who said once to Hawthorne, though I wrote the Gospels in this century, I should die in the gutter. And he was essentially right. Meaning the vagaries and vicissitudes of fortune that surge and recede like the waves against the hull of a whale ship. The pointless cruelty of it all, the curse and emptiness of ambition and the absence of appreciation, the knowledge of one's talent and greatness, Melville's of course, not my own, without the confirmation that comes from public affirmation. Those flashes of fame, like memory of the glimpses of those slow-eyed Tahitian women on Imeo, where he jumped ship, always maddeningly retreating behind the veil of the swaying palm fronds. The teasing bitterness of early success, followed only by declining sales, debts, and crates of remaindered volumes, rotting like the carcass of a beached whale in his publisher's attic. Then finally, trading it all in, this porch, house, estate, and lands of Arrowhead, for a cramped customs inspector's booth in the vicinity of Hell's Kitchen, trapped at last in the nets of the 8 worldly concerns: praise and blame, loss and gain, fame and obscurity, pleasure and pain. I've written a wicked book and feel spotless as the lamb, Melville wrote again to Hawthorne, referring to Moby Dick, which sunk straight to the bottom like a stone, selling only 3,180 copies by the end of his life. In the end, you have to believe that any work of great enterprise is worth doing for its own sake, and its own sake only. I rose at last from the porch and strolled across to the walking path, feeling both somehow more and less lonely. All right. The 2-poem warning. Almost done here. Thank you for your patience, graciousness in the face of whatever this is. This poem, it's either called the greatest poem, it's called the greatest poem I ever wrote. The full title is On the 10th Anniversary of My Temporary Insanity, or the greatest poem I ever wrote. No one will ever read the greatest poem I ever wrote, because I lost it. Of course, the same holds true for the worst poem I ever wrote, because no one reads poetry anymore. But that's besides the point. I'm trying to tell you about the greatest poem I ever wrote. It was about the composer Gustav Mahler and the circumstances surrounding the composition of his 6th symphony, the one that became known as his tragic symphony, for the way it seemed to represent and even foretell the 3 hammer blows of fate that would befall the great composer around the same time. Those being the death of his daughter, Putzi, from scarlet fever, the diagnosis of the heart condition that would eventually kill him, and finally his dismissal as the head of the Staatsoper in Vienna because of the growing scourge of anti-Semitism. The poem opens with Mahler returning to his beloved composing hut at Meyernegg on the banks of the Wörthersee after an exhausting winter of conducting at the Staatsoper. He sits in the hut reflecting on all the taxing events of the winter, finally at peace again, and able to free his shackled spirit in the vast sonic structures of his music and take flight. Of course, I wasn't really talking about Mahler in this poem, was I? Nor exactly am I talking about him now. I'm talking about the greatest poem I ever wrote, which you will never see or read, because I myself suffered a hammer blow of fate. Or several of them. 3, possibly 4. Okay, 5. Shortly after the composition of the poem, in which I went temporarily crazy, lost my job, my marriage, my home, and the one piece of paper on which that poem, the greatest poem that I ever wrote, was printed. The computer on which the poem was written sits completely dead in a black computer bag on a shelf in my garage, like the cloth-draped coffin of Gustav Mahler. And I truly don't know if I'll ever bother to try to get it working again and recover the poem. You know, the greatest poem I ever wrote. For now, then, you'll just have to take my word for it. See the slush-covered streets of Vienna in winter. See the endless months spent endlessly rehearsing Beethoven's Fidelio with an uncooperative soprano, till the arrival of spring and then finally summer. See the great Mahler in his composing hut. Hear the trikiln and glocken on the necks of the alpine cows, their metallic jangling in the crisp mountain air, a maid bringing the maestro a late breakfast up the stone path, a summer storm now building over the Wörthersee. All right. And this is the last poem this is the last poem that I'm ever gonna read. I don't know about that. It's the last poem I'm gonna read tonight. Thank you all again. I listen to a lot of Sunday Baroque on KBIA, Susan Bona's program, Sunday Baroque. I like Baroque music. And this is, you like it? It's a great program. And I heard this piece by, I guess he's Portuguese. I think he is Portuguese. His name is Manuel Correa. And the title of the piece is Para que quiero la vida. It's probably not a Portuguese pronunciation, but it means, for what do I want this life? On hearing Manuel Correa's Para que quiero la vida on Sunday Baroque while delivering Uber Eats for extra money in a bad economy. Don't worry. I am obviously remarried to this lovely woman here. I'm happy. My father bought me the house that I live in. I have a home, a marriage. I put it back together, folks. Yeah. All right. Thank you. On hearing Manuel Correa's Para que quiero la vida on Sunday Baroque while delivering sort of put it back together, while delivering Uber Eats for extra money in a bad economy. And remember that phrase means, for what do I want this life? For what, indeed, Senor Correa? Shootings at schools and shopping malls, including again just yesterday in Allen, Texas, according to the news on the radio this morning, and even cutting out the middleman at hospitals and funeral homes. I'm telling you, Manuel, it's bad. As the poet Jack Gilbert wrote in a brief for the defense, I realize you probably never heard of him, having been dead for 370 years. Sorrow everywhere. Slaughter everywhere. If babies are not starving someplace, they are starving somewhere else, with flies in their nostrils. What defense can there possibly be for this vida, Senor? but it's spring here, and honeysuckle and catalpa blossoms settle like a late spring snow on the trees and bushes, and locust blossoms dangle like white wisteria earrings beside the road. There are words with the lovely sounds of other words contained within them, like a snail inside its whorled shell, as in the phrase wisteria earrings from the previous line. Sometimes people here wear snail shells on their ears for earrings. Even plastic shopping bags possess a strange beauty as they float over the almost empty Sunday morning streets of the town, as if vengeful ghosts angry at an untimely and unnatural departure from this complicated life. There is music here too, thank Jesus. Baroque music, yes, like yours, senor, but many other kinds as well that you've never heard of or could probably ever even have imagined. Jazz, classical, hip-hop, country, you can call that music. What I want to say to you, Manuel, is that even for all its cruelty, the human sphere has its beauty too, which comes from its love for beauty. Strange and beautiful names of composers from the Baroque period, for instance, like Elizabeth Claude Jacquet de la Guerre, whose last name means war, but whose music is the opposite of war, and who was the official harpsichordist to the unofficial mistress of the Sun King, Louis XIV, or Tomás Luis de Vittoria, or even Giovanni Pierluigi di Palestrina, the most strangely beautiful and most Italian name I've ever heard. Baroque instruments, too, with their strangely beautiful names, from which a strange and beautiful music like yours may sometimes be wrung. The lute with its catgut strings, though it makes me sad to think of strings being made from the guts of cats, the type of animal that I love so much. And the sackbut, and the flageolet, that sounds so much in its name, though not in its sound, like flatulence. Even flatulence is sometimes beautiful, for being simultaneously both gross and funny and necessary, and extremely tough to pull off combo, Manuel. Radio programs like the one I'm listening to just now, Suzanne Bona's Sunday Baroque, which I listen to not just on Sundays like today, but every day of the week in the shower, thanks to the strange beauty of playlist archives and smartphones and Bluetooth and smart speakers and a bunch of other stuff that once again would probably be inconceivable to you. And showers, their heat and warmth, or cold if you prefer, whoever you are, you savage. As the water slides sensually down your skin, you work up a lather with your favorite bar of soap. In my case, a bar of Pré de Provence sage soap, quad milled for a richer lather with hints of masculine scents like cedar leaf, cedarwood, and pine. A minor erotic charge, like swimming, second cousin to sex, and its immersiveness, and often, though not always, wordlessness, and fluidity, and oblivion, without all of which life would be, as Friedrich Nietzsche, another person of whom you've never heard, I'm sure, said of music, music just like yours, Senor Manuel Correa, an error, a still strangely beautiful, but nevertheless terribly unbearable error.
I'm just going to do this from here because I don't want to disrupt you guys with my creaky little man walk. But I will use my creaky little man leg. Thank you so much. I'm just going to read this whole thing.
Don't read the hump. Well, whatever you want to do.
Not very many people can compare to Percy Shelley in the 21st century, so that's okay. Percy Shelley wrote that poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. Sharon, SingingMoon, in her new book, Random Seed, refuses to accept that declaration except in its most positive sense. Her poems declare themselves to be protectress and speaker for all flora, fauna, and the planet on which our lives depend. In her shamanic journey, she conjures the feminine to penetrate deeply into the spirit of place as she seeks union and oneness. My senses no longer separate me. I know the letting go of mind, of being everything, my body a whisper. Sharon's Singing Moon has given us a blueprint, a book to heal us all and save us all, the random seeds yet to spark alive, a necessary and beautiful book for our time. Sharon Singing Moon.
Wow. That was my friend Walter who wrote that on the back of his books. He's a poet, you can tell. What an honor to be here and see all your beautiful smiling faces. I am so thrilled. And I want to read a couple of poems from the book, Random Seed. And it is my intent to dedicate these beginning poems to the ladies in the audience this evening. So the first one goes like this. Get your glasses. So the first one goes like this. Did you ever date a cicada? You know what I mean. They emerge from their small, dark hole, cracked through their shell, a bit groggy and confused, hung over from their time in the damp underground. They hang about in some likely spot, evaluate the scene, maybe flit from leaf to stem, stare that bug-eyed stare, seem to wonder, what the hell? Then, as if under a compelling spell, it all begins. The come hither hum, the old baby buzz, the do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight. Of their life is on. But oh, look out. Once the buzzing stops and the deed is done, the space is littered with the smell of sex and death. And another one I'm dedicating to the ladies in the audience. The storm blew in, and he with it. Deep purple, black clouds, raging winds that unsettled dust. Made leaves dance, wind chimes sing. He wore scuffed brown boots, a cowboy hat with feathered band, and tight jeans that caused women to look twice and men to check themselves. He was riding a rough red pickup, a golden retriever sidekick. On the prairie, you can see it coming from a good distance. The storm clouds rolling low and dark, gathering force for their assault across the flatlands. But here in the Ozark Hills, valleys, rocky ridges, deep forests, can hide the truth of a coming storm till it's right up on you, staring you in the face from across the road, from across the bar, hand up your skirt. And when the storm passes, you clean up the mud, dry things out, take stock of what was blown away and what is left behind. Try to set things right again. And I want to read a few that are newer than that book, which came out in 2018. This one is called A Little Jam. She said, wait, before you go. Seeking clarity, she finds the toast is burnt. Buttering may not save it. She said, running is always an option. Cracking eggs into hot oil, she moves away from angry splatters. She said, closeness can be dangerous. Spilling sugar around her cup, hot coffee fragrance fills the kitchen. She said, burnt edges just need a little jam, spooning last summer's goodness over this morning's imperfections. I love you guys. So fun. This one's called Decreasing Pressure, Practicing the Art of Kintsugi. And for those of you who don't know, kintsugi is the mending of cracks with liquid gold. When the weather is damp and ache brings my left wrist into focus, and how I lied, told of a bike wreck to hide his sin, my sin to stay another year. Muay Thai fighters beat their shins against banana trees. The micro tears feel stronger, a golden repair of sorts. To learn our weaknesses, where to let the glowing liquid flow, to mend a cracked bone, a heart wound, how to walk among the golden leaves as they fall. I am now a glorious tapestry, bound with golden seams, celebrating that which has been broken and repaired, made stronger. And one of the things that I love to do is walk in the woods. And so I wrote this poem when I was out walking in the woods one day. And of course, we're in Missouri. We have lots of beautiful deciduous forests to take advantage of. This one is entitled Unbounded. The forest holds no secrets. Life and death embrace. The damaged and the new lie together. Symbiotic lovers. No betrayal exists in the forest. You know just where you stand. On a well-trod path near the bramble, or a bed of leaves patiently becoming soil. Under the safety of cloistered cedars that celebrate both sun and moon, you may kneel. Give up your confession. Surrender to sense, soil, and silence. In the forest, trees dance with a breeze. Delight in knowing they're young. Roots commune beneath the surface. They do not weep for your sad song. No secrets remain in the forest. Life and death sit close. Worms and beetles and fungi live their lives in innocent service. Stream and stones caress, unbounded. The trees will not hold fast your troubles, but send them up and away. In the forest, you know just where you stand. And I am working on a new collection, which I just found out might be published within a few months, and I'm pretty excited about that. Thank you, Jason. I've read a few of these. I've kind of been test driving them at another group of poets called Gumbo Bottoms folks. And so I want to share a few of those and see what you all think. They're about my son who OD'd in January. He was 46, and he had been an addict since he was a teenager. His life was kind of going to this concert, going to that concert, buying drugs, selling drugs, taking drugs, you know, all over. So I'm going to read a few of those. The toxicology report said meth and fentanyl. So the first two poems are about that. White bread. In a room of unmade beds, stained sheets barely used for sleep, stagnant, dark, boundaries are fluid, actions unaccounted for. The kitchen, encased in plastic, a laboratory, where toothless, t-shirted men sample poison dreams as they cook. Bottles of Mountain Dew close, a silent TV rocks toddlers into dullness. Their shit-filled diapers pile up beside beer cans outside the door. In the yard, a calf of mysterious origin appears at dawn, fenced with road crew orange. It cries for its teeth. A school bus stops near a no-name mailbox. A girl, roughly dressed, hair matted, hesitant, stashes books in a 5-gallon bucket, walks up the gravel road. She opens the door to the smell of sweat, beer, tobacco, and chemicals. This is her home. She finds white bread, old bologna, cuts the sandwich into fourths, sits between toddlers on a sagging couch, hands each a share. Her mother, reeking of rage, back aching, teeth painful, staggers from 10 hours at the get-and-go, six-pack and smokes in hand. She tosses day-old roller dogs toward the couch. The girl waits silent, becoming small, invisible. Experience tells her nothing good can happen in a trailer house, in a field, on a dead-end gravel road. That was the meth. Fentanyl. One feather. Was it good intentions, Dr. Jensen, that led you to fentanyl? 100 times more potent than morphine. A medical breakthrough. Formula easily replicated. Just 2 milligrams. The weight of one hummingbird feather stops the breath. While those with deep pockets lie, knowing the true nature of what they peddle, their dollars pile up as thousands die. Some of these are really fresh, so it makes me a little emotional still to read them, but something. Thank you for indulging me. This one is called All the Trimmings. And like I said, my son was kind of here and there. You never knew where he was, you know, until he showed up. This one's called All the Trimmings. After a year or more with no contact, you show up on Thanksgiving. A torn backpack, dreadlocks, and expectations. A turkey dinner with all the trimmings and no responsibility. But this year, my plans do not include cooking. Weather perfect, I take you on a hike, let you ramble, glamorize life on the road. On the way back, I buy you Taco Bell. Offer some wine, you finish the bottle. Tomorrow, I'll take you to Goodwill for new jeans and a couple of t-shirts. I wonder where you've really been, but don't ask. I've said it all before. I save my tears for after you leave. He used to call me once in a while, you know, we're talking years, 20 years, and I call it reports from the road, so I'm going to just read a few of those. Mom, I'm in jail. All I did was take a bottle for break time. Can you bail me out? I promise I'll show up for court this time. Mom, we're getting kicked out. Our utilities are shut off. We need to stay in your apartment. Okay. I'm not getting a job, so fuck you then. Mom, I need to come home. I'm tired. I have lice. They say Bob Marley had 27 kinds of lice in his drips when he died. Send money. No. A bus ticket. Okay. Mom, I'm in the hospital in Cali. I gave them your address. The guy warned me. Hep C. I took the needle anyway. The test is positive. Send a bus ticket. Okay. Mom, I was hitching. I went to the bathroom. The guy took off with all my stuff. I'm in Waynesville. Come pick me up. Mom, I'm in LA. I just got out of the hospital. I was sleeping in a parking garage and got attacked and beat up. I gave them your address for the bill. Send money. No. Fuck you then. Mom, I'm in New Jersey. I met this girl at a show. We're living together. Her dad wants to give me a job. I'm sitting alone in a parking lot drinking, not sure why. She says she loves me. Mom, I need a copy of my birth certificate. Send it to my buddy's address. I need an ID. I got pulled over in EWL. It's fucked up here in Georgia. Mom, I was at a show in Colorado, Red Rocks, dancing my ass off. They said I had a seizure. I'm okay now. Staying with these kids I met. They have a car. Send money. No. Fuck you then. Life with an adult child addict is heartbreaking and a trial. This next poem is pretty new. I've read it a couple times. It's called Closing Time. A hand caresses, a tongue licks, tickles your ear. It's a stranger's kiss you never knew you needed. Breathy whispers turn your head toward a dead-end alley. Lure you deeper, ride your back, lift you up, throw you down, stomp your face, strip you naked, fuck you raw. And when you rise to your knees, body screaming, throw away everything for just one more time. You will know not all demons like to dance, but they do call a tune. As we all know, not all addicts start out addicts. They're kids that you love, you know, that their family loves. They hang out, they do things. This one is called Yard Boss, and it is a prose poem. Short. He did his duty with the hens, but really, he served no other purpose. He ate too much, ran roughshod over the yard, and intimidated the neighbor's dog, who was forced to lay on top of the doghouse watching while his food was eaten. The neighbors complained, so I had to kill the rooster. My son, age 10, and his friend were recruited to catch that brazen bird. They cornered the rooster, delivered him to me, and were impressed when I grabbed the rooster's head, quickly swung him around, and laid his body on the stump and chopped. The hens, showing no interest in the fate of their demanding yard boss, continued scratching. Plucked, singed, in the pot. He was tough and stringy. The dumplings were tasty. Emboldened by their rooster catching dexterity, the boys huddled behind the outhouse whispering, hatching a plot. I noticed their gathering supplies, but was distracted by towels stuck in the ringer. The screams got my attention. I ran around the house to find hens flying, cackling madly. Boys dressed in swim goggles, fins, a snorkel, and garden gloves were laughing hysterically. Mick's teenage sister was screaming, batting away hens and throwing a book at her brother while covering her head with the blanket she had been lying on. After the excitement, we packed a bunch of egg salad sandwiches and spent the afternoon at the creek hunting for fossils. My son found a good trilobite, and we found a couple of primates. His sister refused to eat as a protest against being threatened by goggle-wearing boys throwing chickens. And I want to read one more. And this, I just wrote this one a couple of days ago. So, fresh. It's titled, Do I Miss You? Do I miss you? The person you became? Maybe not so much. It's a hard truth for a parent to admit. You were gone so long, rough edges sharper, more prickly and defensive each time you returned, reeking with anger, tossing cruelty like candy at a parade. You needed to preserve the identity you crafted, the glory of the road, only called when you needed to be sated from the consequence of your own choices. You could never keep a cell phone. We could never contact you, just to know you were alive. We feared you would die, an unknown John Doe, somewhere along a highway, or in a camp of unhoused, in a parking garage where strangers beat you, in a cemetery you said was a safe place for sleeping. I do not miss the worry, the fights when you came round, your calls from someplace begging for help, a ticket, money, a jail in another state, a bondsman harassing me to pay when you skipped out again. I tried to balance the positive. Remember your laugh. The crazy card game you tried to teach us when you showed up for Christmas. How you helped build the arbor. We could never get it plumb, but it's still standing. A reminder that you could be okay, even kind, that we could have fun together. The potential of you, the possibility that you would recover. Take the chances offered. Heal the wounds from the hard life you chose. I do miss believing that being a dad would be enough, that you would finally grow weary of the road, of the drugs. I miss the hope. What an honor it's been to share this with all of you. Thank you so much.
I could have run around to that door. Oh, excellent. Lynn, are you ready?
I'm ready. I feel like we need a seventh innings.
What's that?
I feel like we need a seventh innings.
Seventh stretch.
Everybody stand up.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
You should break the
Yeah.
Yeah, I could do a pitch for it, no pun intended.
Yeah.
For the cards.
All right. Lynne Jensen Lampe. Lampe was born in Newfoundland. Raised mostly in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Her poems appear in many journals. including Figure One, Only Magazine, Yamasi, the American Journal of Poetry, and Lit Magazine. The poem Stirring the Ashes was a finalist for the 2020 Red Wheelbarrow Poetry Prize. She lives with her husband and 2 dogs in mid-Missouri, where she edits academic books and journals.
It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm thrilled to meet Andrew, and it's just a joy to read with you too. And I'm looking forward to whoever's going to read at the open mic, hearing your poetry too. I wish that I was able to write with some of the humor that Andrew had in his work, where he can weave it. I have other friends who can do that too, weave the serious and the humorous. I don't do that so much. My book is just coming up on a year old. Talk Smack to a Hurricane is about my mother's severe mental illness and its impact on our family. It's also about anti-Semitism. It's about psychiatry. It has some history in it. The book really taught me a lot about my mother and how much I really loved her and how much she loved me. And as you listen to these poems, I hope that you'll just remember that part, that it was difficult, but we had a lot of love in our family. I'm going to read some from this book and then some from some newer poems. And I usually read in the order that the poems appear in the book, but I started thinking about the way that when we think back to a time in our lives, we don't always think of it the same way. We might remember a different piece. It might seem good one time, not so good the next time. So I realized I don't need to read these in order, and I just picked an order that felt right for tonight. This first poem is called Chiaroscuro, which means light and dark. The moon drums its fingers across Carnelian Lake, shrugs, waits for the loon cry. Sepulchres fester on the ground, soft, meaningless. Blisters weep for winter, feed what could become spring. Could, conditional tense, what we wish for, hope for. The gaze is everything. Silence scabs thought, and all dead belong to the king. God, religion's needle, dull blue bruise. Hurt means feeling, and feeling means alive. We knuckle our fear. We hope our feet to the floor every morning. A new song drops and we dance in the kitchen, throw open our curtains to the sky. I love to watch my mother make up her face, and she didn't always have opportunity to go out. She and my dad didn't, have date night or anything like that. But she loved makeup. She loved Avon. So the tutorial: plastic bouffant wig for me, Vidal Sassoon 5-point cut for her. Mama tunes out Twiggy, wriggles into girdle, half slip and bra. We both watch her face in the mirror as she ankles white pearl across her lips, dips a little brush in water, then shadow, purples her lids with Mary Quant. Mama slips into the blue sheath, pats powder on her nose and chin, snaps the compact shut. I dig through my shoebox of Avon samples, inch-long tubes of grease in sunrise, reds, corals, magentas, pink frosts. She spritzes topaz inside each wrist, hers and mine. I want what I can't yet name. I want her glamour. I want her. She pops on white oval shades, grabs the keys to the Corvair, rubs my kiss from her cheek with spit and a thumb. So, as Jason said, I was born in Newfoundland. My dad was in the Air Force and was stationed there. And my mother gave birth to me, and within 2 or 3 weeks had a psychotic break. And she was sent away to a base hospital in Florida, which is quite a ways. And in fact, my dad, they didn't even tell my dad where they sent her. And he had to go, he went to his commanding officer. He said, you know, if my last name was Eisenhower, I'd know where my wife was. This is 1959. And anyway, he found out it was Florida. He went with a transfer to Florida. I went with my maternal grandparents to Baton Rouge, and I was separated from my mother for my first year. So, over the years, she was in and out of hospitals, and I have really no way of verifying my memories. My mother died in 2011, and my dad is too distraught on the topic to talk about it. So I did a lot of research, and some of that research shows up in this poem. Fingered. I write poems with hands like hers. Rounded fingertips smudge the page with mental health and mental illness. Blister as power dictates the same old social contract between doctor and patient. Love me, revere me, obey me, I'll say you're healthy. In 1883, the state insane asylum in Jackson, Louisiana, swallowed Emma Caribby, 58. Recorded diagnosis, noisy and troublesome. Viola Wade, 36, deceptive in her affections. Comfort Kemp, 27, homicidal mania due to giving birth. Renamed East Louisiana State Hospital, the asylum admitted Louise, 34, my mother, already tethered in 1968 to the DSM via the fraying rope of schizophrenia and manic depression. Bipolar disorder with psychotic features due to giving birth. Being pregnant changed her brain chemistry, she said. I heard, you cause my crazy, never get pregnant. But maybe she was telling me every woman changes after making a child, and she was willing to risk being someone new again. She'd already worn skins named daughter, writer, smoker, grad student, traveler, wife, mother, unmothering, when another family adopted her first child. Patient, and now mother again. Juggernaut of emotion and hormones splatter small rooms of the heart chemical red. Trapped years in sulfur and saffron, kitten heels and paper slippers. Palmistry considers conic fingers a sign of creativity, intuition. Psychiatry considers womanhood a disease. So my grandmother took me to Baton Rouge, and she worked, and my grandfather worked, and a white middle-class family in the South, and there was a black woman named Nellie who worked for them, Nellie Watkins, and I don't know why I didn't call her Miss Nellie. That wasn't what I was taught to do, which would have been most respectful, but we did love each other, and I wrote this poem thinking of her. Nellie had 4 thumbs instead of just 2. Extra, a grace note. Extra, the way stew thins to soup. 13 donuts for the price of 12. A room saved for guests who never come. 4 thumbs instead of 2. Nellie made the best apple pies in Baton Rouge. I never asked her which thumbs crimped the crust, if she felt sad, if people made fun. She'd cup her hands on each side of my face when my mama was gone, extra thumbs cradling my jaw. It'll be all right, child. Come help me make this pie. I never asked her if she got those thumbs from her mama, like her son got his from her. If she was sorry, if difference made her strong. Extra, another day to wake early, make coffee, watch steam rise from the lawn. Give me a day in 1959. I've got questions to ask. This poem is the only one in the book that's written as though my mother were speaking it, and it was my imagining of what was going on in her mind. And yeah, locked inward, looking outward. Birds slam into plate glass, land belly up on the ground, broken. I start my rounds, fiddle with the TV, check the window, smooth my cotton gown, check the locks in the lounge, fiddle with the radio dial, circle the vinyl chairs, stroke the Barbie doll head in my pocket. Here they have more doorways than doors. Every door has a wrong side, sometimes two. I fiddle with the TV, dust the windowsill, count cushions on vinyl couches, count cigarettes on the corner table, count cats in the puzzle. I straighten the lampshade, check the TV, slick my lips red. There isn't a door with a right side here where they make me empty other patients' bedpans, choke down pills, chew a towel every time they fry my brain. Every brain has a wrong side, sometimes two. I'm tired of ever smaller spaces inside my head. They say I can't leave, but my brain is a door. Most of my life, I wanted to be whatever was different from my mom. And in writing this book, I wasn't setting out to write a book, I was writing poems. In writing all these poems, I realized that we actually had a lot of things in common. And some things were very similar, some things were the same, like we both played piano. So in this poem, if there's just a single word, that's something that we share exactly, and otherwise there are things that are sort of the same. Glass tongues, Teflon, cast iron, piano. Words string us together, weeping cherry blossoms, pink as old scars. Mother, daughter, burns, cordials, filter tips. Falls, whiskey, clove cigarettes, psychotic psychedelics, fertile, barren, nurturing. Uncut the cord as daughter snaps her bag of lies, whistles to a mother no one knows. Cord uncut, words untethered, tongues untempered glass. So I have two more from the book. My mother's side of the family is Jewish. I was raised Jewish, and there's, if you grow up in a Jewish family with Eastern European roots, you just have, the Holocaust is just sort of embedded in your being, and it never really is too far. My mother had a bad fall and knocked a hole in a wall with her head. It was the size of a bowling ball, and it was in Salem. And they airlifted her to Columbia. It was really snowy. It was Christmas Eve, and my dad couldn't make it, so he asked me to go. And and this is what I saw, and it was one of the most important days in my whole life, then and now. Oh, and the rubber hand of God refers to the mask that they used to give people when they would do anesthesia with ether. At the other hospital, they pass pills in paper cups. No one will gas her with the rubber hand of God. But here, surgeons, not psychiatrists, rule the halls. Here, white coats spread across the room like fat in a pan. A young one needles Mama's vein again and again, vial after vial of blood for tests. Tubing tethers her body to machines, and her mind straddles barbed wire, the memory of 6 million. At this moment, her bones hold just one doctor's name, Mengele, Nazi. Earlier today, forced transport, shoes, clothes taken. Her fall, a brain bleed, a helicopter ride to a city hospital. Falling, her relentless fear. When I was 6 on the down escalator shopping at Prangies, Mama made me stand in front in case she tumbled. Today, she risks all for me. Today, I know she loves me. A white coat, a Mengele, taps my shoulder. My Jewish mama bolts upright, growls, "You can't have my daughter." This last one was from a prompt to use parts of speech and write a short poem that was one sentence, and I changed it around a little bit, and I feel like it is for my mom. The last hunger. Her tongue carves grace before regret, feeds on wind until darkness fails. Death skins 1,000 trees to build its castle. Struggle forgets fragrance, cold empties her name. So just a few more. We would go on weekend drives, and sometimes it was to take my mother back to the psychiatric facility, sometimes it was to go get ice cream. Sunday afternoons always end on a highway, pass or no pass. Today, Mama packs blue pills and bologna sandwiches, leaves her clothes in the drawer, tosses a collapsible cup into her purse while Daddy gasses up the olds. We head anywhere but the road to Jackson or Our Lady of the Lake, where they like to lock Mama on a steel door board. Daddy pops in an 8-track, belts, "Trailer for sale or rent." She lips a cigarette, clicks her Zippo, shelters flame with her hand. I think about the school nurse holding a smoker's lung, asphalt in a jar. Speed blurs honeysuckle and kudzu. Daddy keeps his eye out for flat grass and shade, a good place to lay our blanket. On the left, a wide drive, white clapboard, columns, an old sugar plantation, now a hospital, and dorms full of people, no longer sick, who could leave but don't. We don't talk about patients taken from families, belongings burned, names changed. No one tells me about the cure or mentions that crazy people aren't the only ones we hide. Daddy sings chug-a-leg, chug-a-leg as we pass Carville, the leper colony along the river road, someone else's sorrow, one hospital that will never admit my mother. The Kaddish is the Jewish mourner's prayer. In the dark, God can't tell time. Exactly 2 years after Mama died, Dad and I made blintzes in his kitchen, frying dozens of thin pancakes to fill, fold, butter, bake. We wanted to feed our bodies, not our grief. Sorrow bleached his spirit. Despite the stove's heat, No blood limned the broken vessels that crazed his chin and nose, his face whiter than snowy egrets fishing his pond. Eating flesh fear to the surface. Meal finished, dishes cleared, we drove back roads to the county hospital, where they had pints of blood and no answers. Medics rushed him to St. Louis, red lights flashing wide the highway. I prayed we could steal time from heaven. Enough minutes, darkness can gather itself into light for an hour, week, year. Today, thank God, I only say Kaddish for one more than I wanted. Dad never wanted to travel alone, still talks about eating steak at 17 with Ava Perone and 100 other sailors. Mossback, shellback, order of the ditch. Words swirl across paper tatters tucked in a metal box, hark back to time at sea. 3 years after Mama died, he took to water again, riverboat to Budapest. Lost with questions and without a map, he found himself where darkness blazes seawall, tiled roofs, oiled rainbows on pavement. Night leaches color from stained glass windows high above the square. Cherubs and bones festoon cathedral stones wrapped in rags of light. Clocks sink into heaven. So that's, I'm trying to write a series on light, so that's one of them. But to distill all that down, I did an erasure, and it came out like this. Dark time, Mama died. We feed our grief, broken, no answers from heaven. Darkness Daddy never wanted, rainbows stained and wrapped in rags. I'm only giving a one poem warning. One poem warning.
How does some prepare?
When light calls the city home, light hides in his fist and stays, becoming something else. 4 fingers and thumb furled into a grenade, daring strangers to pull the pin. As he strides the alley, his fist holds shards of night, remnants of stars, refuses to be responsible for the power coiled in muscle and bone. A shudder and open his hand, floats to his flat palm, becomes a dawn bruise of sky. It casts yellow breath on brick buildings and ginkgo trees, sinks into the concrete that lids the dark, dissipates and doesn't care. There's always another fist. Thanks.
Applause, please. We're going to take 10, and I mean 10. Go outside, do whatever you need to do, then we're going to do an open mic. And I'll have a sign-up sheet.
And I want to make an announcement before if people have to leave. Next Tuesday, Justin Ham is featuring at Poetry at the Pub in Rolla. We're starting at 6 o'clock. That's this coming Tuesday, September 19th. And 19th, right? And then next month in October 17th, we have Aliki Barnstone for Poetry at the Pub. And, yeah. So please do come and join us there.
But what pub is it at?
The public house.
It's
the
called
Rolla Public House.
Oh,
Rolla
okay.
Public House Brewing Company. It's on Rolla Street.
Okay.
I'll share it around.
In Rolla.
Too.
That's the
I'll make sure you
name.
guys all know where it's at.
Rolla Public House on Rolla Street in Rolla.
Yeah.
Should be easy.
Rolla.
Thank you so much,
You
guys.
realize how like intense it's going to be.
Great to see you. Yeah, well, you paint, don't you? You know what I mean? You still
Really?
It does. It feels like it's all a piece. Yeah, I think that's
I
really
love
good.
to look at your blog, and I did not put it as a reply to your blog, did I send it to you?
I don't know.
Well, when you found it.
No, I'm
Yeah.
COVID era. Well, I was Fort Lord Foundation at the time. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Couldn't go anywhere. Couldn't do anything. Couldn't go to school. And so I created this. It's like a literally self-published chapter. No, I don't know. I gave it away. I only made 50 of them. But
Election season.
I don't get it. Everybody seems to be following along. Yeah, I hear all the news that are everybody is different than any other people. They just are. Then it's next to that's one of the reasons we have problems. This is the off-house.
I know.
It's not going to be all right. You know what? When Nixon got pardoned, everybody said, oh, it's for the good of the country. And you know what? If that pastor had gone to prison, nobody, you can't put his face on the back end. You know? He was bad.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Are we starting?
Yes.
We're starting.
We need the rain.
Okay.
Yeah, there's actually rain.
10 minutes, poet.
This is the perfect spot right here. I'm gonna make like
No offense, Robbie, but I'm.
so we can see. All right. And you don't need the jacket.
Not yet.
On the way back. It feels good. Do you feel okay?
Hey, poets. Come on.
You're getting soft on it, Jason.
I know.
Soft.
We are resuming.
The last couple times I've been
Sorry. I know.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
The old Jason. Yeah, that guy, I don't know what he's left behind somewhere.
Rebrick says, get your ass in
The
here.
new improved Jason, hopefully. All I'm saying is the quicker we go, the quicker the beer and burgers are down the street.
Yeah.
That's I know why you people came.
Beer and burger.
You're pretty good down there. I should have warned everybody that you are being recorded. So if any of you are on the run from the law, talk to Tony. We can have you edit it out. This is live streaming to our
For a
YouTube.
small fee.
For a small fee. False fee. And it's on our YouTube channel, which, what is the name again? OAC Medium. I'm glad somebody knows.
Media.
Oh, Media. And we've got a ton of material on there and lots more to come. And if we can, maybe keep it down to about 5 minutes or less on this. Don't have that many people. Which, of course, I'm going to start with the comment. I mean, see, that means I get
You get privilege.
And when there was no crawdad, we ate sand. An old postcard of William Burroughs sitting in a folding chair, holding a bullwhip in one hand and a cane in the other, rumored to house a sword that was routinely sharpened. Of course, his weathered Stetson fedora jauntily cocked on his head, a thin smile and a look in his eye that for some reason made me think of the old Arab proverb, "There are no signs in the desert that read, 'Do not eat sand.'" William Burroughs actually pinched my butt at a party one time. So that's my 15 seconds. I think he wanted to see if I was tender or not. This one's a good one, James. Bring it back to the compound. Old man, I don't know why a cane keeps getting working right. Old man with a cane leaning on a mailbox by the side of the road. These are faux coups, by the way. They are strict 575. Doesn't make the poem any better. I just want to sound clever. Old man with a cane leaning on a mailbox by the side of the road. There's an old man with a cane leaning on a mailbox full of bullet holes by the side of a 2-lane highway, and an 18-wheeler is rounding the curve just about a quarter mile down the road, coming to us from Cooper Hill, Mount Sterling, Rosebud, and parts unknown and beyond. A yellow butterfly caught in its grill, a red balloon tied to the passenger side rearview mirror, a hawk hanging on the bright blue wind. Now these are Tonka 57577. They've been thoroughly rejected by any respectable haiku journal out there for not being real haiku. I don't care. They amuse me. Sitting on a bench in an old inner city cemetery, I am suddenly struck by a vision of mortality. I'm not sure what it was that compelled me to choose this bench in an old, overgrown inner city cemetery, to pause a while from my daily gerbil wheel routine and sip cautiously from my piping hot quad cortado with steamed oat milk, of course, while pondering upon the usual mysteries and conundrums and various other random perplexities that tend to bubble up to the surface layer of this world from time to time, from seemingly bottomless depths. Like, what were all these people doing? And who or what were they thinking about? And what were their dreams and plans for the future when death, that big, boring buzzkill driving his team of pale horses and old creaky wagon of rags and bones, suddenly appeared right in the middle of the road? Justin Ham?
How's everybody doing?
Wow.
Give me a half a second here. I had it pulled up and then it disappeared. I think I got it. So I'm going to do something a little bit different. I've been doing a lot of poems from Drinking Guinness with the Dead, which is my last book that came out. And last time when I was in Gumbo Bottoms reading there, I did some erasures from a project I have coming up. This time I'm going to do something that's prose. I have a book coming out with Spartan shortly in the next few months, and it collects some strange prose things that I've written. I wouldn't call them short stories. I wouldn't call them prose poems. They do a lot of different things, and so I want to get into reading some of those and sharing some of them. So this one is called It's Just a Dream, and that's a Neil Young reference from his album Prairie Wind. And what you need to know about this one is that Neil Young is an environmentalist who still loves classic cars, and so he's had people engineer environmentally friendly classic cars for himself. You should also know that he both loved to perform with and hated every other member in Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. And they would get together every so often, and then they would bicker and fight, mainly because Neil wanted to run the show, and then they would break up again and then get back together. That won't be happening anymore because we lost David Crosby not too long ago, but you should know that as well, and that will give you what you need to understand what I'm about to read. So it's Just a Dream. Neil Young wakes in the semi-darkness, rises like the very sun itself, and places upon his head a dusty black fedora. He wraps his physical manifestation within a flannel shirt, as if wrapping it within a shroud of the Holy Spirit. He eats something organic and picks up the news and quickly puts down the news, and outside is waiting a specially engineered, environmentally conscious classic car into which Neil Young climbs with great pleasure. He stretches, rubs his eyes, keys the ignition. Neil Young's dreams have been troubling. In them, there was a Rubik's Cube that Neil Young had been trying to solve. This Rubik's Cube should have been called the Devil's Cube, so certain is Neil Young that he could not have solved it, even if he had been given a lifetime. Now, as the American West unfolds before him like a motion picture that does not move, but is rather moved through, Neil Young begins to mentally design a machine that will not only solve the Rubik's Cube, but also punish the Rubik's Cube for being all but unsolvable. Neil Young, in his dream and in the here and now, as we call it, in dream or in reality, is suddenly willing to do anything, willing to risk anything to bring this machine to fruition. He will meet presidents and prime ministers. He will go on television and try to remain at least moderately cheerful and accessible. He will record new music, perhaps even alongside fellow rock icons with whom his current relations are rumored to be as frigid as the Ontarian winter. Of course, all of this is a tall order, even for Neil Young, who finds himself suddenly sweating beneath his fedora with the heat of the enormous pressures he places upon himself. Off comes the fedora. The western atmosphere sucks through the car window and swirls around Neil Young's uncapped head, cools him, restores his senses. He wipes his forehead with a handkerchief, catches a glimpse of himself hatless in the rear view. His hair is less substantial than it once was. His face is different than he usually imagines it. His eyes still cut, but I look so mortal, Neil Young thinks. Back on goes the fedora quickly, and yes, Neil Young feels himself again, restored to legend in the flesh status, just another rock god out cruising in his environmentally friendly land yacht to breathe in the soul of the mountains and the essence of the valleys he so desperately hopes, but is not confident will be here for future generations. He reminds himself the fedora stays in place from now on. Now a song begins to knock at the cellar door of Neil Young's imagination. He applies greater pressure to the gas pedal, feels the minutes and the miles falling away like old habits and old friends. Someplace deep and lost and wild, Neil Young pulls over. He takes out or perhaps conjures up a guitar and an amplifier, which he plugs directly into the side of the first mountain he reaches. This perhaps seems unlikely, and it would be, except that it happens. It is the truest thing you will find written here. Neil Young plugs the amplifier into the side of the mountain, and he plugs the guitar into the amplifier, and he makes a contorted face and begins to do Neil Young-like things to/with the guitar. The sound is the sound of an electric beard trimmer in a concrete truck making strangely melodic love. The sound travels out over the lands and everything the land supports. The flowers, the cities, the rivers, the graves of the famous and the graves of the forgotten alike. The sound travels out over everything, and everything willingly submits, agrees to believe that Neil Young can create anything Neil Young can dream. The irony, in that same moment, Neil Young himself no longer believes. Neither does he disbelieve. He has no opinion, in fact, no existence except in the noise he has become, or perhaps that he has always been. Neil Young has forgotten the Rubik's Cube of the long, dark night behind, the punitive measures he wished to take against it, the great promise of his unmade machine. Our scene must shift now. Missouri, early morning, just me and a steaming cup of Jamaican blend, 3 sugars and 3 creams. I'm sitting at an outdoor table, watching the breath steam like dragon smoke from the mouths of the winter sidewalk walkers. Neil Young's memoir spread open beside me when the sound of his guitar hits my ears. I can't tell if it is real or if it is something I have invented from what I have been reading. I hear the guitar, and soon after I hear the trees calling back, and the mountains and the valleys too, and the last of the clean rivers who still have voices in a chorus of gleaming fish. And I wonder if these sounds are mine. Do they belong to my mind, or are they formed from the corporeal stuff of this world? That's the thing. I can't begin to say for certain. For their part, the mountains and valleys and rivers and fish do not seem to care. Neil Young, they howl in ragged unison, responding to the call of his guitar, and their howls easily stretch the long miles between us. Neil Young, Neil Young, Neil Young. Thanks, guys. Ken, you're up next, man. Let's hear it.
All right, we'll start with 2 poems that are long for me. If you know anything longer than 15 lines is long for me, and these are, I've been doing these things called, some of you have heard of them, a lot of you have heard of them, Random Riffs on the Road. I moved here in 2012 to be with Bonnie, and I drive back all the time to Buffalo, sometimes with Bonnie, sometimes on my own, listen to music, and I write poetry while I'm driving, taking into account what I see. Sometimes, I thought I started with jazz. It turns out I did one 5 years ago to Grateful Dead. Radar Love. Occasional headlights, the only break in the darkness. I count white lines that flash before me, each one closer to my destination. This road knows me well. Every curve wraps itself around me. The rumble strip knows my name, warns of the siren of sleep that beckons, with a trance that lures me to be anywhere but where I am. Mile markers pass beside me, the road beneath me. I remain a stationary element in the night, until I'm lifted by a guitar intro that leads into a steady drum beat. The wheel goes light in my hands and I hear my baby's voice, her longing, calling me home. That drum beat carries me along and there's a glow on the horizon as the sun slowly rises. But I won't let it blind me to my goal. I need her as much as she needs me. I keep a steady pace, feel the comfort she sends my way. There's no way I'll let the road keep me hypnotized. She's my light in the sky, and I know her radar love will bring me home safe. Thank you. And yeah, this is about going back and forth to Buffalo. So, momentary permanence. I paddle, and I paddle, each stroke offering reward. A bass thrash. I'm going to start over. Momentary permanence. I paddle and I paddle, each stroke offering reward. A bass thrashing in a futile struggle to escape the grasp of an eagle that swiftly rises from the river in a slow January crawl. The graceful nature of his sycamore's white lines against the blue March sky, as beautiful as the full green bloom of its leaves in the coming months. A dragonfly, the imperceptible breeze of its lustrous wings, welcome in August heat as it flits from a tree branch to the bow of my kayak, to reeds that line the shore, never still for long, until it reaches the gray arm of a tree rising from the river, pausing to let me pass. I drive, and I drive, each trip offering reward. Children who greet me with open arms engage with long talks of events, new and not so new, as if they're old night. Conversations starting up where they left off, leaving off where they're bound to start once again and again. A granddaughter who will read to me the memorized tale in her favorite book. One who will walk with me a fast crawl more her speed than the last we were together. Both milestones in the passing years. Places that never grow old, never have when I was close, and never will, even in my absence. The sight of maple trees with oak and hickory have become my norm. The blue of rivers, waterfalls, and lakes, now that I'm surrounded by muddy waters. All of this, welcome to me, permanent bonds, even with their temporary nature, like golden sycamore leaves as they drift beside me, caught in the swirl of my paddle, as if to remind me they will always be with me, even if waiting inside graceful vines against the blue November sky. Thank you. This one starts with that breath. There and gone. Coming, going, the water birds don't leave a trace. Togen Zenji. It's early morning as I paddle on a narrow, winding river with air still and cool beneath trees that offer shade from the August sun. A heron on the opposite bank takes flight, but a killdeer lingers to dash in spurts along the muddy shore until the wash of my wake, sparkling with sunlight, sends it into flight, erasing any tracks left behind. A kingfisher passes on its way downstream, the waves of my wake reflected in its flight. Its trill fades away. I hope that any trace I leave will be just as fate. One last one from my book, but it's easier to read from black and white, so I'm going to do that. Last wash, thank you. Jason came out last year, last wash. And this is real positive notes. Living for now and then. Don't look back. The voice of my past telling me not to move. The voice of my past telling me to move on. There's nothing more to see here, but there was. There are stories I have to tell you before they're lost. Lessons learned. Experience is not for the experienced. I am still, just as you are, will be. Live for today, but remember, if you learn anything from this, and you will, remind yourself, you will be
Agnes, you ready?
I'm going to read you two poems and a prose piece. Those are two poems that are going to come out just like next week. This one is in Two Riverview. It's called Palimpsest, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's when they use a piece of paper or pergament that they reuse that had text on it that's scraped clean, and often there's still like spots where you can see the original writing. Palimpsest. Nobody teaches you how to be a widow. On your own, you must learn a new alphabet. Write the sequel to your story on the palimpsest of your dreams, scraped of his presence. Cherish the traces of his hand, still shining. This next one is actually Ghazal. So, and it's gonna be in Gyroscope in the foliage. It's entitled Hourglass. The shadows on the sundials lengthen. Daylight leaks from the ear. The balance tilts to darkness. We tell you the accounts of the year. The trees acknowledge the season with the yellowing of their leaves. Scent of impermanence on the wind. We sense the end of the year. Bees mingle in the mint, tumble in the goldenrod, last harvest. Tenaciously, the leaves cling to the branches. We cling to the ears. Old wives' summer, the golden days that smell of apples and wilting leaves. My aged cat was still sunning herself at my feet this time last year. Leaves sail on the breeze, land on water, and float down the river. They are teaching lessons about letting go, I think, every year. Seeds fall, a raft to carry blueprints of life across the winter. The promise lies patiently. The spring showers will wake it next year. We try to row, but we cannot steer, cannot decipher the map. The sand in the hourglass remains hidden. How many more years? For my father's birthday, I sent flowers to cheer up my mother. She ordered a bench to sit by his grave. Soon it will be here. And this is a prose piece, and it's not quite as wacky as the other. Quest in a spiritual crisis. You have tried it all. Started with the common ones, vitamins and supplements, that pile in your kitchen cupboards. After a few weeks, you forget to take them. They didn't help anyway. You go to the gym, step on artificial stairs, lift chunks of metal that serve no other purpose. You tried yoga, herbal tea, crystals, even tarot readings. The self-help books pile by your bed, your head swirls with their platitudes that claim to offer paradigm shifts but fail to deliver. You still feel trapped. You just stuffed your dungeon with pretty cushions. You graduate to a retreat with a lot of gold. You listen with rapture to the words of wisdom that fall from the gore's lips like pearls, to find they are plastic beads that sparkle only until the shiny coating has rubbed off. You go to church, kneel. The minister's platitudes are not any more profound than the guru's and less grammatical than those of the self-help books. The hymns are soothing, but you prefer patchouli to the smell of incense. And the promise of paradise after death does not fill your emptiness. You flee after the lost amen, envious of the faithful, directionless as before. You turn to the unconventional. Connect with a group of witches on Facebook. Dance, sky-clad, a euphemism for naked, in a circle under the full moon. Run, chanting through the woods in a thunderstorm. When they ask you to lick salt off the head witch's toe, you excuse yourself with a stomachache. They aren't very convincing anyway. You seek out a self-proclaimed shaman. Set aside your doubts about his being genuine, disregard his Ozark accent and his lack of cleanliness, accept the dubious liquid he claims to be ayahuasca. You cannot be sure. You twitch on the floor in the grasp of the concoction, wake up in an empty shack with a headache, your backpack missing along with the enlightenment. At least you can find your shoes. You trudge through the woods at dawn, find a trail, start walking. Just walk. You can only find when you stop seeking. It's a paradox. The caterpillar has to wait out his time in the chrysalis. Thank you.
Mary Edwards, you ready? All right.
No, I'm not.
Now I can see it.
Okay, good. This works better for me too. Sometimes a title just kind of pops into my head, so I explore it and see where it leads. As with this first poem I'm going to read. How many feet in a smile? Smiles can be cheap as feels go. A cashier, berated by previous customer, now receives a smile that lifts her from dark space of hurt to healing worth. Smiles can soften when we must tread. An impulsive child, corrected, now sad, receives smile from parent, small son, to warm little heart, moving into arms again. Smiles lying deep within can be costly, a couple's searing words thrown like daggers, till one aching heart yields, digs deep, offers smile that transports them across torn space. How many feet in a smile? We may not know for sure, but oh, the potential of those journeys. This next one, don't have a little intro bar, it's short. Blind moles. We try to move past the mountains that soar within us, unaware that some mountains are really molehills and we blind moles clawing our way, asking the wrong questions while we tunnel past answers waiting, hidden at our cores. The next one is about one of my grandsons. I have 8 grandkids and 3 grandsons. When he was a boy and now a man, he was very few words. He didn't say much. He, for a while, kind of felt because he wasn't real verbal that he wasn't as okay as everybody is. But he has a lot of talents, and he's still shy as an adult, young adult, and he's doing very well. So this one's about him, for him. Silent vision. Silent Braden, we have lovingly dubbed him, this young man whose dark brown eyes beckon with depth, mystery within. From child holding Dutch, his black and white rabbit, gently in his arms, to tough defensive lineman, spiked shoes digging into ground, helmeted, orange and black clad figure, whose angled forward stance shouts, I yield no ground. A picker, this modern day miner, standing before a pile of junk. To him, Mother Lode Mountain, waiting to be mined for gold. Old microwave, fan with bent blade, even a 92 Ford, rusted, rat-gnawed wiring, discards of others, challenges to him. Dirty or partly broken are these enticing finds. He deems perhaps worthy of a second chance, needing only a little intelligent attention, time and love to shine, rescued with his humbly quiet vision of potential. I was holding a keepsake from my grandmother one day, and looking at and remembering things that were associated with that, and I realized that it would not trigger precious memories for my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, just because as time goes on, you have fewer connections with things you begin to forget. So that's where this one came from. Time zones. We are born into the freshly here, wrinkled new life, crying out self-announcement to the world, thrusting our tiny hands into novelty of air, unknowingly grasping heartstrings. We grow into the vibrant years, take the pulse of more hearts, make friends, form new families, interact with co-workers, embark on journey of self-discovery, chart a course, hope to distill our unique gifts to the world. Then somehow, we find ourselves in the sunset glow, our hourglass of life spiraling down. We know we cannot freeze time, that ours will run out. We assess, cherish memories, bask in moments of sun still shining, let things go, hug people more. Finally, we slip into the almost gone realm, an intermittent world where we are tethered temporarily, inhabiting here only the lingering memories the lingering memories of those who knew and loved us well. So time zones cycle, ever yielding, one to the other, beating a cadence through life. This last one, I wrote some time ago for my oldest son, who had just graduated high school and would soon leave for college that was states away from his friends that he had here, and he had a really close network of friends. Friends, my world was smaller until our give and take created special places where I could explore, become. You accepted me as I was, laughed at my crazy clowning, sifted as chaff my goofs and moods, cradled and loved my fears and dreams. Sometimes you chidingly called my bluffs, kept me real. I thank you. Together, we were elated and sad, boisterous and silent, strong and vulnerable. We pounded eager fist on the sky's blue limit. It yielded. We faced new dawns. We were laughing suns and soaking rains, liking each other. I discovered myself in the depths of your eyes. Your visions challenged, formed me. Dear friends, you will always be a part of me.
Judge, you ready? John Clayton.
Jason, would you move that chair up there for me?
You want this one over there?
Yeah, that one right there. Set it in front of the stool. Thank you. I'm glad to see all you Columbia people down here. Thanks for coming. Jason told me one time that he thought I was a protest poet. I'm beginning to be reminded of 2020 with all this Trump crap going on the television. And I'm just, pardon? I'm just pissed. You know, nobody is getting treated like Trump is being treated. The innocent, nobody I know, I was in the law business most of my adult life. I didn't like when Ford pardoned Nixon. I thought it was a mistake. I still think that. And, you know, if he'd done 20 years then, Roger Stone wouldn't have his picture tattooed on his back. So I'm a little bit direct, unless I want something. This poem is called Sorry, My Mistake. I did this book. I misunderstood. I thought we were speaking truth for honesty's sake. I hate it when I've misunderstood. When I'm expected to talk and smile, but only tell the truth once in a while. You know, just leave things out that need to be said. So everyone but me is happy when they go to bed. I hear you brag about how very brave you are. I'm sure that in your mind you're surely a star. Definitely a hero, or maybe even two. I don't see you that way, even if you do. When you don't say what needs to be said and don't want anyone else picking that sword, it will just fester and get red. Lance that boil and wipe away the gore. Hate me if you want, it's up to you. But if you ask me a question, expect me to be true. I don't need to hear myself talk. But if I speak and you're offended, just take a walk. This piece is called Tired, which is, I'm beginning to feel tired again. I'm tired. Tired of people who only want sound bites. Tired of people who are too lazy to think about nuanced points of view. Tired of people who have never been south of St. Louis whining about their southern heritage. I'm tired of people who think that all police are bad. Tired of people who think that all police are good. Tired of people who say they are not racist but say racist things. I'm tired of people who think that flying a traitor's flag is the equivalent of wearing trousers too low. Tired of people who shoot their mouths off on Facebook but want to stifle criticism. Tired of people who are against choice before stopping SNAP. I'm tired of old people who are for government health care for themselves but not for those under 65. Tired of people who say they're for freedom but okay with brown kids in cages. Tired of people who claim to support the Constitution but only when they like the result. I'm tired of senators who say they are for due process but refuse to allow witnesses to trial. Tired of the president lying every damn day. Tired of public corruption. I'm tired of Baptists hating Muslims. Tired of Muslims hating Jews. Tired of Jews hating Catholics. Tired of Democratic tribe members. Tired of Republican tribe members. Tired of cheap, lazy independents who never contribute or work for anything. I'm tired of the thieves who cheat on their taxes. Tired of people who think that not being inconvenienced is a constitutional right. Tired of people who say that minimum wage is not too low. I'm tired of poor people who blame other poor people for being poor. Tired of ignorance being a virtue. Tired of men being mean to cover for insecurity caused by low IQs and small penises. I'm tired of people who would sacrifice others for the economy, but not themselves. Tired of lazy, low IQ assholes who only post memes because they are too intellectually challenged to have an original thought. Damn, I'm just tired. We don't do many house readings around here, but I'm having one, and all of you are invited in my house on October the 6th. It should be interesting. I've invited a lot of people who were, some of them are like in the Senator Tuberville mode, who think that poetry might be a woke thing. What, you know, he said, Tuberville said that the problem with the Navy was is that they were allowing sailors to read poetry over the loudspeakers on the ships. So, anyway, it should be interesting. You really, my notes are don't think so.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out. Especially Andrew, Sharon, Lynne, for coming all the way from Columbia. We're gonna come invade your territory soon. I gotta know about the Adams books. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, but it's only open one
It's
Saturday.
like one Saturday for 3 hours.
Yeah.
What's the story? I gotta find
It's
it.
been there for
Ever.
1,000 years.
Yeah, some
But
guy.
it used to be open more though. When did it? What? But it's been open just one Saturday a month for like.
It's changed with a padlock.
Yeah.
Before you guys go, special thanks to Mark McLean and Tony Hayden and OAC for this place, and a bunch of other places in town that you probably don't know about. That's why this is here, and I can't tell you what. I believe the next reading is the 21st. Hey, it's right there. Because of Mark McLean and Tony Hayden, we now have these fancy flyers, so that they should tell you everything you need to know in the upcoming
Top left.
There's a
Top left, October 21st.
is the next one, and then I believe the
That's
29th.
Yeah.
No, that's October.
That's music.
But yeah, that is all. And tomorrow night, you guys probably don't know, we have there's another one of our facilities that we lovingly call the Dirty Castle. It's an old stone building. I think it was a dealership, car dealership at one time.
Yes.
It's a really cool place. It's about 2-3 streets over roughly this block, and there's going to be live music there tomorrow night. There was last night. It was fantastic. And we're going to be doing more events there, weather provided. So if you can make it back tomorrow night, what time? 7 to 9. And yes, so thank you all for coming out.
Hey, before you go, guys, how about one for Jason? Thanks for hosting, man. It's good to see him up on his feet and doing his thing, right?
Thank you, Jason. And I don't want this to get away from us. A few days ago, we weren't sure if this band was going to be back with us. And we are glad you're alive. We're glad that you decided to come back.
Thank you.
And this is his first hosting, and Mr. We also want to say thanks for Mr. Dorsey. He's in the magical land of California, sharing his craft in Sacramento, maybe tonight, but he'll be back soon. So, but all of you, thank you, poets.
Thank you.
And thank you, audience. We'll see you, hopefully, 20, whatever that was. Yeah, later in the month. Yeah. See you next week. Yes, sir. I'm gonna get.